Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the Carnot. This is a tier 9 French battle cruiser that you can find for coal, available in the Armory. This is going to be the last coal cruiser I'm going to go over. I wanted to do the high tier ones, as getting to tier 2 and 3 ones, I don't think it really compares to some of these higher tier premiums you might be interested in. So don't worry, the roundup is coming. I'll give you the order in which I would prefer to get these ships soon. Carnot being the last one on the list is a bit of a happy coincidence. In the Armory, it appears last in order, so that's what I decided to do. And it's also probably the worst one. Little spoilers, I suppose, but this ship is pretty difficult to play. Let's talk about the positives first, though. This ship does have 305mm guns. You actually get 10 of them here. And they have decent HE and armor piercing. The shells do some really nice damage to cruisers in particular. And as far as the armor is concerned, it's not too bad. Although this ship is large, so you will take quite a bit of damage. You have a lot of HP though to deal with that as well, which is nice to see. The other thing is this ship is really fast, so you can move around the map rather quickly, respond to enemy flanks, or just flank yourself. It's really, really good and allows you to impact the battlefield a little bit easier than some of the other battle cruisers might, since they are often a little bit slower. But the problems with this ship are the reload. This ship has like a 25-second reload, something like that, base, and only 18.6 kilometers of range. So we're lacking range when compared to a lot of the other battle cruisers at this tier, and our reload is much, much longer, and we only get one more gun in return for that. So not the best. It doesn't have improved accuracy or anything like that either, so relative to other battle cruisers, that is. So we're just not going to be outputting nearly as much damage, and I do think relative to the other battle cruisers, we're lacking some battle impact as well, since a lot of them are going to just straight up output more damage, which is often what you're needing to do with these ships, or maybe they have a little bit better closer range armor, or they have torpedoes, stuff like that, to help them out. The ship does not get any torpedoes. You might think, where's the reload booster on this ship? And that is where this ship struggles compared to the tech tree counterparts, the Marseille line, that is kind of a French offshoot battlecruiser line in the tech tree now. Those ones have even bigger guns, 330mm on those, and they get a reload booster to allow them to get more impactful salvos at the right opportunity. So a bit of downsides when it comes to the Carnot. This is a old battle cruiser. This ship has been in the game for a while, and it kind of shows. This ship could use some things to just help it impact the game a little bit more here. Notice in this match, I actually don't even have speed boost. This is a ship where you have to choose between a spotter plane or a speed boost, which is a little bit uncomfortable. I do think the speed boost is probably the better pick. When you're facing tier 9 counterparts, that kind of thing, it'll work quite well. But anytime you're playing a tier 9 these days, I'm sure you've experienced it, the up tiers into super ships matchmaker. And that sucks when you're playing a ship as big as this one against super ships where they all will be outranging you. It's very, very difficult. HE salvos are okay here. I found the damage output to be a little bit lacking. Maybe I played too much Azuma and Yoshino, but certainly compared to those ships, the HE Alpha is kind of low, it feels like. And that's kind of something French ships are known for, at least on the cruiser line, like Henry, Condi, these things have really high HE Alpha, very similar to some of the Japanese HE. And this one doesn't feel like it has that. The other thing is the AP Alpha here is actually a little bit lower than the A gear would be as well. So it's this weird middle ground where it doesn't really get a lot of any really major advantage. It doesn't feel like, outside of, I guess, the speed on this ship. But taking range mod is really not the best option either, because again, 25-second reload. So I do feel like this ship is stuck with that 18.6 kilometer range. So if you're struggling with range, I don't actually recommend taking range mod. I would say much sooner to swap over to the spotter plane. The ship is still relatively quick, I would say, considering that, how fast does it actually go here? Let me check. 34.5 knots base. So you can add a speed flag and up it a little bit. That's pretty quick still. And that allows you to be maneuverable enough to get around the battlefield, get your guns in play. And I don't really see range mod as much of an option on this ship, unfortunately. This game happened to be my best game. I will admit that I struggled a lot with this ship. I was trying to use the AP much more than I did in this match. And I think that's going to be key to this ship, is you have to use HE a lot and only use that armor piercing when the perfect opportunities arise. Otherwise, might feel a little bit weak on this ship. You notice I'm also playing bow in a lot here with the Carnot, and that's down to the ship having pretty terrible turret angles when it comes to kiting. You'll see a few clips of that later on where I get absolutely smashed because of it. 39 degrees being how much broadside you have to give to actually fire your front guns when you're kiting, which is awkward because French cruisers, you're often getting into kiting positions, trying to burn down battleships as they're pushing in, and the ship doesn't do that very well at all, just because those firing angles are so bad. The armor is okay, the deck armor is decent, but you'll notice that the superstructure here is massive, so you're taking a lot of damage there, and your upper belt is only 30 millimeters, so that means anything with 430 millimeter guns and above, so that's Republic and above, are going to just overmatch through you. And as you get those up tiers, you're going to get hit pretty hard. Bow in though, the rear turret angle is not too bad. 28 degrees to fire this rear turret when you're facing forward, which is kind of nice. And that is where you're seeing in this match, I'm fortunate enough to not face too much overmatch, allowing me to play more bow in, and that worked out reasonably well for me. Although we're still trying to use islands to protect ourselves a little bit here as well. You're going to take a lot of HE damage because, again, this is a very large ship. At least you have a large HP pool to make up for that. But, yeah, it takes a lot of damage when it gets focused. You want to be playing a little further back, too. By the way, I have no clue how that was a Citadel on that Auckland. We got very lucky, or maybe there's some bugged armor, because I've actually had a few of those. If you look at the, I think, Tulsa video, I also Citadel'd in Auckland, or maybe it was an encounter in a similar way. Very, very strange how much damage those take in a weird angle. I don't even think we overmatch his bow or anything like that. That just must have been a very weird bounce or something like that. HE at range here is what we're going to deal with this Kansas with, hoping for some bigger salvos. But again, I feel like the alpha damage of these guns is just a little bit low, and maybe that's dispersion, but maybe that's the alpha damage just straight up on these HE shells. But it feels like it should be a little more impactful considering the reload on these guns. Again, it's 25 seconds base reload on these guns. Battle cruisers at this tier are getting around 20 kilometers, or 20 seconds, sorry, of reload, around 20 kilometers of range as well. Funny enough, but 20 seconds versus 25 seconds for one more turret, and not great. It's really not great playing the Carnot. It's probably the worst example of battle cruisers at this tier. And if you know me, of course, I really dislike this class in general, battle cruisers. It's a subclass, I suppose. They show as cruisers, certainly, but really don't like them. Their combination of cruiser weaknesses and battleship weaknesses is really hard for me to get over. Certainly there are some advantages that they bring too from being cruisers, a little better concealment, a little better maneuverability and speed, at least speed in this case. And certainly the strengths of a battleship, higher alpha damage is very nice to have, bigger guns, more pen. But it's hard for me to get over those weaknesses that they bring as well, which is worse dispersion and less consistency from battleships and worse armor from cruisers. So it's hard for me to get over that, where we don't retain the consistency of cruisers and the battle impact of cruisers in exchange for some of the worst weaknesses of battleships. It's hard for me to get over that personally, and that's why I really don't like battle cruisers in general. If you're enjoying them though, Carnot is still probably not the pick. I would definitely recommend a lot of the other battle cruisers over this ship. It's just the worst one, basically, is what it comes down to. I think you're going to have more interesting, fun games with an Aegir if you're trying to push in with it, because that ship has just better armor, better reload, torpedoes. It's going to do a better job. If you're trying to farm from range, you're just going to have a better time with Azuma, or certainly Yoshino. But even Azuma does an excellent job at this tier of farming battleships down from range. Even though that one also doesn't get torpedoes, the guns are just far more impactful. At least that's kind of how I found it. This one we get up to, what, 163,000 damage, so not too bad, I suppose. But I had a tough time, guys. I had a really, really tough time playing this one. I think there's a very good reason why we don't see this ship all that often. It's quite expensive, and is just a worse example compared to the other battle cruisers that you can get for coal. So maybe skip this one would be my advice with this thing. Nearly finishing off the Iowa there. A little bit more damage is nice to have, but that's the best game I had. Don't worry, I've got some more highlights to show you guys, or highlights and lowlights. The ship did perform in some situations. I had some insane AP salvos here. You're going to get those from time to time against cruisers in particular. Here we're, I guess, second by base XP. Our Illinois had an excellent game there. 11 fires, 26,000 damage. Not really what we're looking for when it comes to farming. Certainly, that's a little bit unfortunate, but still a decent damage game. Broadside Lexington. I'm a little far forward, but still should get some decent damage. And we get one Citadel. A little disappointing there. Maybe the guns have too much pen or velocity or getting over pens. You're going to see that in a later clip against a carrier as well. Broadside Bayard, though. These are the ships we want to be facing when we use our AP. And there we go. Nearly a full health Dev Strike. So I've been hard on this ship, but it can perform. It can perform. There are certain situations where it will do pretty well. Certainly getting fortunate with RNG. That's kind of comes with the territory of battle cruisers if you're going to do good damage to enemy cruisers. There we go. Managed to finish him off there. Feels pretty good to have that. Now towards the end of this game, we are losing this one. I'm going to try and finish off this Roma. But there's an enemy Buffalo on our flank. And, well, we're a big ship. And we're going to take a lot of damage. That was 13,500 damage from that enemy Buffalo. Very strong AP, of course. American AP hurts a lot for us. We're going to try and deal with him with our high explosive. And this is where, or at least AP right now, but I should be swapping to the HE shells, certainly, and I do. But this is where I would want to see a little more alpha damage out of these guns. Buffalo's a pretty big target at these closer ranges. I would like to see much more damage, I think, out of this HE, especially if I'm waiting so long. That was 3,500 damage from our front guns, and our rear guns just miss entirely. Maybe I aimed that poorly, but yeah. It's been a bit of a disappointment. 8,600 there. I think he clipped our superstructure mainly. Big superstructure. Although now wishing for more HE alpha damage, somehow we're going to detonate him. That's a detonation, guys. That isn't just randomly our alpha damage spiked. No. That detonated him. I don't know how with HE we managed to detonate him. By the way, we're on 10, nearly 11,000 HP there. And whatever that test ship is just did 11,000 damage to us straight up there from that range, which is kind of nuts. This ship takes a lot of damage. All right, here's a kiting clip. Notice the angle we're going to have to give. I'm showing too much broadside right now. We can show less, but our team has sort of given up this flank, and I was getting hopeful, actually. I was getting very hopeful this game. I was like, okay, great. The enemy team's going to push here. I'm going to swap to HE. I'm going to burn down all these battleships. I'm going to be the French cruiser that's just going to be at the front, kiting away from these enemy battleships and burn them to the ground. This is like perfect scenario for any farming open water cruiser. And we're going to struggle. We're going to struggle a bit. Dealing with this Azumo here, we do pen 51 millimeters of armor with these HE shells, so we shouldn't be shattering too much. And Azumo's a pretty big target. The superstructure is tiny, but that deck armor we should easily be able to pen. I believe it's 50. Maybe it's 57? I think it's 50 though. You can see me actually checking it there in game on this one, but we should be getting some good damage. 4 full pens, 3,000 damage. It's just a little bit weak. It's just a little bit weak, these HE shells. And again, that's probably down to me playing too much of an Azuma or a Yoshino where the HE shells have insane alpha damage. But yeah, a little bit tough. And here, taking a massive hit from a Zeton of all things at range because we gave too much broadside. I'll show you the armor later on in this video when we're in port. But yeah, I have to give that much broadside to shoot at the Colorado. I was hoping the Lazo would poke out is really what I was trying to shoot at. Again, trying for cruiser shots, not battleship shots with this AP. I don't really trust the AP here into battleships. I trust it more against cruisers. Get another opportunity here. We're getting to the end of our range though. Again, we have the speed boost here. I had speed boost for most of my games actually, but I found myself wanting to swap to the spotter plane because I just didn't quite have the range in a lot of the up tiers. In these mid tier games where we're top tier, it's fine. But yeah, nice salvo into the Lazo though. Nice to see. Hopefully our team finishes them off. because he's out of our range at this point. Got to show a lot of broadside to get those guns off here, but hoping to do some damage to this Azumo, swapping over to the HE again. Somehow we get 6,500 to a bow on Azumo? Right? Like, where did that salvo come from? It feels like a lot of RNG, man. It's just a lot of RNG when it comes to playing battle cruisers in general. That's probably my main complaint with them, I suppose. The reason I don't play them as much is just because it's just more RNG and less reward than a battleship has for, in my opinion, similar levels of RNG. I want to play cruisers for consistency and battle impact. That's just me personally. But hey, a broadside Zeton. All right, let's see. At this range, nearly 14 kilometers, we're going to use the AP. Let's give it a shot. And we actually get a Citadel. 16,000 damage. That's pretty good. A very rare salvo, as we're going to shoot him again and do basically nothing. So I don't know what that one was, but if that happened a little bit more often, hey, that would be pretty nice. Again, the reload a bit of a pain here. I think this ship probably could gain a reload booster and be fine. I don't even think it'd be that OP to have a reload booster, to be honest with you. 25 seconds is already a pretty massive penalty for this ship relative to the other battle cruisers at this tier. I've already mentioned that. So giving it a reload booster and having the worst reload of all the battle cruisers, maybe that makes sense. Broadside Baltimore managed to clip with 2 Citadels. That's a nice salvo. See, like, it can do well. The rest of this game was terrible, so we're going to go on to the next one. Take a bit of a superstructure hit there. Seattle looking to, I guess, turn broadside onto us to this salvo. Might have aimed it not quite lead enough, but I mean, that still hit pretty close to where those Citadels are. That was rear superstructure. Still had under the turrets there. A little unfortunate, I suppose, but I mean, this reload, he's just sitting there broadside. Let me reload, game, please. Reload booster would help us out so much. He still sits broadside for us, so we should be able to get this finishing salvo here. And we do. And we do. Very good. So there are, again, it can work. It can work. I'm saying it's the worst one, but it's still, you still can make it work. I just had a much more difficult time with this ship. And, well, this is one of the worst armored ships in the entire game. And it basically has no armor and a Citadel that's like nearly to the flight deck, I guess. And we don't Citadel it because it's so poorly armored that I think I just overpenned through the Citadel there. I don't know, but even at that range, we're overpenning through his Citadel. That is painful, man. That is painful. You really got to go after cruisers, man, because I guess ships like that one are too lightly armored to even take damage, and battleships are too heavily armored to really take damage, and you really need to find cruisers with above water Citadels, because any of the ones with submerged Citadels or waterline Citadels, you don't have the consistent dispersion to actually effectively hit consistently. Very compromised, in my opinion. Very, very, very compromised. If you're enjoying Carnot, though, continue to enjoy it. Don't let me stop you. But yeah, for me, it's rough. I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot at this point, but I'm trying to be a little bit fair. I'm trying to show some of the positives where I would never really want to buy this ship personally. And spoilers for the roundup video of all these cruisers. You know Carnot is going to be last on the list. It's going to be dead last by a long shot. 8 full pens for 6k damage from the HE. Okay, there we go. I was hoping for more of those salvos, like 5k damage or more from an HE salvo. Considering our reload, I think that's not too bad. 9,000, he has less than 10,000 damage. We get our shot in here. It's a little further back than I'd like, thanks to the island cutting us off. Do 4,000 damage, I guess. Here's a great example of the speed boost and maneuverability. We're going to be able to angle in time to not eat Citadels here. When he hits us, we're at like a 32 degree angle with that initial salvo. So, hey, that extra speed forcing people to shoot at suboptimal times, making it a little more difficult to shoot our unprotected bow. In this case, he should definitely be aiming for our bow, not our broadside. But I'm going to try and bait him into shooting our broadside armor here, hoping that he does that, and that should bounce, hopefully. Unfortunate we didn't actually get a Citadel there at that range. And he does. He shoots our belt armor. If he had shot our bow, man, he could have dev struck us. But hey, I'll take it. Now at 2 kilometers, 1.5, There we go. We can Citadel Aroma. I was a little disappointed we didn't get a Citadel there in that earlier shot, but maybe he was just angled enough. We had too much pen for that carrier earlier in this game, and we had too little pen for the Littorio, right? It's a little bit rough to be in that middle zone where in both opportunities we're lacking a little bit. But this one, another good game, another decent flank for us. 137k. It was such a rough time that I was actually thinking this was one of my best games. The first game where I had my best match was actually the last game I played, because I was like, this 142k with an okay flank, surely that can't be my best game. And it was up until that last one. So I'm glad I did play it enough to get that first game for you guys, a decent showing of the HE and AP. But it's a tough ship to play, man. Okay, just to start with here, before we get into the Carnot here, this is the armor on the Aquila here. That's the carrier I was shooting at in that last game. It has basically nothing, right? Like, this is 19 mil armor. It's basically nothing. This is actually Citadel here. 19 mil Citadel armor, man. Like, how? Like, it must have just overbent right through, man. Like, all right, on to the Carnot. So I've already talked a little bit about the differences in the builds for this one, but this is really what I landed on with this ship. Certainly, it's more geared towards some of those super ship games, trying to account for that. So we're taking spotter aircraft, and I actually might swap to Eye in the Sky on my commander since the cooldown time here is so long. But having that spotter plane helped out a lot in those super ship games, and that allowed me to retain reload mod here, because we still have a 22-second reload, even with reload mod. It's rough. It's rough. You have to take accuracy. I went with propulsion mod here. That does mean, though, that our maneuverability is really, really bad, but you can speed juke a little bit. Certainly, if you have the engine boost, that's going to go a little bit better. To have that speed boost at 20%, it's a strong speed boost. That's why I want to take it, but it's just unplayable, it feels like, in those super ship games with an engine boost and reload mod. And I don't want to give... I would rather give up speed boost than reload mod. That's what it comes down to, at least for me personally. 25 seconds, man, is just such a long time for these guns. That is not good. Here's the build that I was running. I actually did run Demo Expert. The fire chance is actually slightly worse than something like an A-Gear even, which is kind of amusing. But still, I'm probably going to go with Eye in the Sky here. I'm not going to change it because I don't plan to play this ship ever again. Seriously, though. So I'm not even going to bother changing it here. But this is what I ended up playing with. Top grade giving us a bit of extra reload. I think if you're running it in ranked or anything that's a smaller game mode, outnumbered would be excellent. The speed, but specifically the dispersion. You can activate that a lot easier in things like ranked where there's less people and you go on a flank, especially with your speed. That could be a really good use case for this ship. But then you're lacking in the armor and torpedo department compared to something like an A-Gear. So it's still a little more compromised. So Citadel is kind of waterline, so you can get away with some suicide turns, but you're still going to take a lot of damage from people. It does look like you have a turtleback, but it's a fake turtleback. It's only 20 millimeters, so battleships just overmatch you. I suppose that's enough for cruisers, but yeah, you're just going to get crushed by battleships. And then just look at how much armor is here. 30 millimeters, and it's gigantic. So cruisers like that Buffalo was hitting us in here with his AP. It was like 13,000 damage, no citadels. That's pretty rough. And sure, your deck armor is 36. That's very nice. But look at this superstructure, man. It's gigantic. It's huge. You're gonna take so much damage. And then just for to help you out even more when you're kiting away with these abysmal turret angles, you got a shot trap here. This step up of armor is just gonna catch so many shells if your superstructure itself won't. It's rough. As for that Littorio, who aimed here and bounced, very kind of him, but yeah, just aim up here. 25 mil armor, aim here, and yeah, there's Citadel here. Even if you don't hit the Citadel, which is waterline, so sometimes you won't, still gonna be a lot of full pens through there. Rough ship to play. Certainly could use some love, I think, from Wargaming. And in one of these buffs that they do every once in a while to older ships, I think even just giving this thing a reload mod would help it out a lot. But, sorry, reload boost as a consumable. Reload mod's a different thing. That's an upgrade. Reload boost, I think, would help this thing a lot. And even then, I still don't know if I'd play it. But let me know what you think with Carnot. I tried to be fair, but I do not think this is a good ship at all. And I think you should avoid it, like, at all costs. Any other ship, I think, is going to be a better option for you. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.